everyone, Alexa Donne here, and today I am going to be talking about 5 common pitfalls people face while drafting and some solutions for pushing through those pitfalls. This topic was suggested by Amy Sue Wisniewski. I want to say thank you for suggesting a great topic that gave me lots to expand upon. So the first category / pitfall is people who start a lot of drafts but never finish a single one. So this is when you're idea hopping. You write 10 to 20, maybe even 30K of an idea, and then you just peter out on it and you give up. And so it's a writer who ends up with a ton of unfinished drafts but no complete novel. So this to me is a sign that you are not ready to write a novel yet, / none of your ideas are the one. Now, it's a bit dangerous to think of the one, this elusive concept of a perfect idea. You do have to do some work to arrive at that perfect idea. Like, you need to take a strong idea and develop it enough to be a full novel. But when someone is jumping around, it's clear that nothing so far is sticking. This is also really common when you're first starting out and trying to write a novel. We've all been there. I think I had 3 or 4 incomplete books before I finally landed on an idea that I was able to write all the way through. So you either need to continue brainstorming ideas until you arrive at one that really clicks with you, or you need to take one of those existing ideas, just decide that you are going to finish it no matter what, and then you need to do that. This means developing that idea so it has more conflict, stakes, character arcs, an A plot, a B plot, etc. One suggestion I can make for this once you pick an idea is to plot your book backwards. Start at the end, meaning think of the 3rd act climax and what everything can build toward, and then work backwards. This is how I plot my thrillers, and I have a video specifically about that, which I will link to down below, but it can work even if you don't have a thriller. There's gotta be something big that happens in Act 3 that represents change for your main character, and you can work backwards from that to make sure you have enough for an entire novel. And my last tip is to try NaNoWriMo, whether that's in November or one of the Camp NaNoWriMos. They do it in April and July. Essentially a community-driven writing event where you force yourself to keep going no matter what, to push through that place where you've always stopped before, to think on the fly, to come up with conflict just so that you can move forward. Sometimes that kick in the pants of something like NaNoWriMo is the thing that helps you push through to finally finish something. The second very common pitfall with drafts is people who get so attached to a single book idea, a single completed book, that they just can't let go. They draft it over years. They rewrite that draft multiple times. They query it multiple times. You just can't let go. I've seen people hold on to books for more than 5 years, 6, 7, 8 years, and it is honestly one of the saddest things that I see, because if it's just not working, if someone just doesn't want it, you have to move on. You need to write something new, and frankly, that is my only advice here. You have to write a new book. Draft something new, because you're never going to learn the skills that you really need to level yourself up to go back and potentially fix that old idea that you're stuck on if you don't move on and write something new. That said, 90% of the time, you really do just have to leave that thing behind. If it's not working, it's not working, and you need to kill it. You need to just put it in a drawer and abandon it. There is a small percentage of cases where sticking with the same story over 8 to 10 years works out for someone, but those cases are such outliers that I don't want to harm any of you by giving you hope that you can hang on to this draft forever. At the least, move on to something new so that you can come back to that old thing later completely fresh. Essentially, you can never nail the book of your heart if you don't learn and level up writing other things. The third drafting pitfall is like the even worse version of the second one, which is where a writer gets super attached to a single idea, a single novel, and they work on it for years and years and years, often more than 5, except they don't actually finish it or revise it because it's years and years and years and years of development and writing maybe 15,000 words of one thing. We're talking half a decade of years spinning or more. Usually when this happens, a few things are happening. fear. You're afraid to write the thing because it's so important to you that you're afraid of messing it up. It not having enough conflict stakes, etc., that it's basically not an idea that can support a novel, but you don't actually know that because you haven't gotten far enough to write it. You're just brainstorming and world building, etc., etc., etc. Often these are projects that have tons of ideas but no actual plot. Or something generally is just missing in your motivation. You think you want to write a book, but do you really? Because if you did, wouldn't you write one? Essentially, endlessly wheel spinning on an idea is a procrastination technique, and honestly, the difference between a writer, an actual novelist, and not a novelist is novelists actually write their novels. So something has got to give. So I do have some suggestions. You need to be brutal with yourself, kick yourself in the pants and say, I'm gonna write this stupid book, and you need to do it. Alternately, write something else. As the same advice I gave for the other points, you need a palate cleanser. You need something totally new that hasn't been overworked, that you can't psych yourself out over, and just write it. You clearly need enough to actually write a book, but you'd be amazed what a total palate cleanser idea / novel can do for you generally. Again, it's about leveling up, actually finishing something, learning something about your own process for novel writing, and if you do it on something that is a little less important to you, not working on the book of your heart, it can actually be easier to develop and finish that thing. Another thing I see here that is a suggestion for you, I find a lot of people that do the endless wheel spinning are secretly pantsers. They are discovery writers who think that they have to be outliners. So part of this endless development is that they think they have to figure everything out about the book before they start, because that is what we are traditionally told. But they are struggling to figure everything out about the book before they start because they don't realize that is antithetical to their process, and that is scary. So my advice there again is just to take the plunge. You might surprise yourself. And generally when you're just endlessly wheel spinning and you're not successfully starting or completing any drafts, I say try anything you can. This is where you do trial and error. You try every conceivable method of novel writing. You try outlining, you try discovery writing, you try the snowflake method, you try the hero's journey. You need to throw all of that spaghetti against the wall to figure out what sticks, because there's no one-size-fits-all solution to novel writing for every single writer. My NaNoWriMo idea for the first one can also work in this case. You need something to kick you in the pants to make you write the thing. The fourth drafting pitfall, this is a very specific one for you fanfic writers out there, and this is the case where someone who has been a prolific fanfiction writer decides to turn their beloved fanfic into original fiction, and the pitfall is that you make only superficial changes to that draft so that it doesn't actually stand on its own as original work. It's very obvious that it is fanfic of XYZ. What to do in this case? Usually, honestly, the answer is distance and potentially moving on from the thing, because if you don't have the emotional distance to make real substantive changes so that something doesn't read like fan fiction, then the book is simply never going to work the way you want it to work. It's usually very obvious when something is thinly veiled fan fiction. So distance, you need to set it aside for a while, move away from your fandom, which can be hard. And frankly, if you're not ready to move on from your fandom, are you really ready to write original fiction? I think this is a soul-searching question you do have to ask yourself. Because to really file the serial numbers off on fanfic, which I'm not against as a matter of course, even if it's not something that's my personal favorite, but to really actually do it well, you do have to get a little more creative with your process to really make it its own thing, even though it was originally inspired by or written for / within fandom. I do have a video on that, by the way, on filing the serial numbers off, which I will link to down below so you can hear my full thoughts about that. But like a broken record, I'm going to tell you, just like the other ones, usually the solution here is to write something new. And the new thing you should write shouldn't be fan fiction. It shouldn't have anything to do with your fandom. You need a palate cleanser book. How many times will I say this in this video? You need a totally brand new idea / novel that you can write start to finish, do some editing on, to learn about your writing process, to push your skills in the areas that are naturally going to be weaker if you have been writing fan fiction. I used to write fan fiction. I'm not negging you. I'm speaking from experience. There are some serious pros to fan fiction writing and there are some serious cons, and you need a palate cleanser book or 2 or 3 to basically learn how to write a proper novel, and then you might find you can go back to that project and really do the work that it needs so that it can stand on its own. And the 5th drafting pitfall is where you are so attached to your story and you are so attached to your characters that you are basically afraid / completely unwilling to do anything bad to them. And since nothing bad will happen to them, your story lacks conflict. Nothing happens. So first off, if this is a mid-drafting problem that you have, if you happen to recognize it, my first bit of advice is actually to just finish the draft. Get all the way to the end, because it's, in my opinion, better to finish than to stall partway through and then never finish it. I think that this is actually something that is fixed in editing, and then you're gonna learn some valuable skills of editing. So you finish the book, then you go back and go, more stuff needs to happen. What are kind of the critical turning points in this story where I can have bad things happen to my character, I can give my character flaws, I can have my character make poor choices. And then it becomes an editing project to basically dirty up your manuscript and have things actually happen. That said, if you do realize that you have this fear earlier in the process and you are able to kick yourself in the pants and start over, or kick yourself in the pants before you've started, that works too. But I have definitely experienced this post-draft, meaning I've drafted an entire book and then realized I didn't actually take any risks with my characters, nothing bad actually happened, and that the book was light on conflict, and I was able to fix that in editing. Basically, you have to be tough on yourself and tough on the things that you love so that they are basically not boring. Boring is the worst thing that a story can be. So that's it. Those are 5 common pitfalls in drafting and some of my advice for how to overcome them. I hope this helped you out. If you are stuck on any of these things, they are really common, so I bet some of you are. Let me know down below in the comments any questions you have, or if you have faced any of these and how you have overcome these pitfalls. And give this video a thumbs up if you like it. I will make more videos about topics in writing and craft. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. I post new videos 2 to 3 times a week. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, guys, happy writing.